Welcome back, guys. If you're interested in vocal technique, pick up my ebook called Becoming a Natural Singer, or if you want one-on-one help, book a lesson through my website or drop me an email, links in the description. So, technique versus paradigm. What I want to talk about is one of the challenges of searching for stuff on the internet, searching through YouTube for vocal tips, shall we say, technique tips, is we get BandAids typically. We get solutions like vowel modification or consistent compression or stay narrow or whatever it is. Stuff I talk about all the time. Stuff other coaches talk about all the time. Now, the reality though is this, in terms of what I'm trying to get across here. For some people, all they need is BandAids to fix their voice. All they need is a rough idea of what technique is. You get them to run. You run them some scales, and they discover nice balanced technique with nice even closure, nice consistent vowels, and everything kind of falls into place for them relatively naturally. These are what I would refer to as more blank slate type singers. Typically, these are people who've either sung from a young age particularly well, or people that have hardly sung at all until they were older, other than, singing at a low volume when they were kids, in assembly and things like that. The harder cases, and the people that tend to have the real struggle, and the people who these BandAids don't work for, or at least they don't do enough for, shall we say, they don't service them well enough, are people that have sung with poor technique for a long enough period of time that they kind of get trapped in this sense of glass ceiling, in the sense of push, in the sense of strain, in the sense of they just don't know what to do. Everything they try breaks, everything they try fails, nothing that they try seems to bring anything new to the table. Now, what I want to get across is that it's not enough for these people to simply be told about technique, to simply learn how to do X, Y, and Z. And in a sense, whilst they do need to learn those things, and we do need to communicate to them these concepts of keeping balance, compression through the range, keeping the vowel under control, separating out the different functions, bringing it all together, etc., etc., we also need to communicate something a bit deeper. We also need to communicate what technique is for, in a sense, because it's not technique in a direct sense. And what I mean by that is we aren't teaching people consistent compression in one sense to teach them consistent compression. I'll make sense, just bear with me a sec. And what I mean by that is, really, as the singer starts to get some grasp of these skills, what we're trying to do is help them to build a bridge over to a new vocal paradigm, to a new vocal reality, to a place where they no longer need quick fixes in order to get their voice to work. They no longer need these kind of logical approaches to technique to get things to kind of work a bit better. You see, if you look at natural singers, they aren't in that vicious circle because, frankly, they're in a different reality. They're in a different paradigm. They're already in the paradigm of subtle adjustment. They're already in the paradigm of confidence. They're already in the paradigm of knowing what they're doing. So for them, when they try to fix things, it typically works because they're already on the right side of the fence, shall we say. Their whole method of being as a singer is within a completely different framework of reality. Now, the harder case can't just move over to that new world. We have to kind of coax them into different ways of developing the skills enough that it starts to illuminate in their mind, there is something that I've never seen before that I can potentially move into or towards, shall we say. And the broader point I'm trying to get across is this, is it's one thing to learn tricks and tips and bits and bobs about your voice. You see a lot of coaches with these very convoluted, high detailed methods. They'll sell you these long books with endless jargon in. And a lot of that is just more tips, more tricks, more stuff, more clutter ultimately. And it's not really getting at this root of the problem. It's not getting at how do we help the person or the singer make a paradigm shift into the world where they no longer need all that stuff. Because natural singers who sing well from a young age don't need all that stuff. That's the reality. The best singers don't need all that jargon, all that stuff, all that terminology, all those books, all those things, all that clutter. They don't need it. So whilst we need some of that to help you to build this bridge to a new paradigm, the end goal really in terms of developing and becoming a natural singer is to get to the point where we don't need any of that stuff anymore, because we're in the new paradigm, and people in that correct paradigm don't need the junk, don't need the clutter. And then the question is, how do we build this bridge in the right way? And learning technique helps put the bricks in place, but it's a compromise in a sense. We're having to make a compromise with some of this in order to build that bridge. We're having to give you some tips, some help, some sense of the reality that these other people are working within, without overwhelming you to the point where you start to add clutter and add complexity into stuff that doesn't need it. So you can come at this in two ways. If you're a struggling singer, you can kind of add layer upon layer upon layer of convolution, of complexity, of jargon, of clutter, until you quote unquote get better. Or you can seek to strip all of that away, go back to a very simple way of vocalizing without that junk, and start to illuminate in your mind, or in the singer's mind, what it's like to live in this different paradigm. Now, at first, there's this battle between paradigms. We have moments or exercises that illuminate it for us, and then we have other exercises or sounds or things that we're singing that drag us back into the old paradigm. So we kind of sit on this bridge moving to and fro for a significant period of time, depending on how hard a case we are. And we start making a choice. Because in a sense, there is a lot of incentive to stay within the harder paradigm. There's a lot of emotional incentive, and there's a lot of intellectual incentive, frankly, to stay in the old paradigm. To move into the new paradigm, whilst the end goal is better, in the short term, it often brings up issues, intellectual issues, issues that humble us, issues about what we even think singing is, issues about what we even think technique is, issues about our ego, issues about who we think we really are, issues about things like the singer we think we are versus the singer we actually are. And all of these things disincentivize us from crossing that bridge and crossing that threshold into the new paradigm. Now, eventually we spend more and more time in the new paradigm, and we spend less and less time in the old paradigm, but this tug of war goes on for a period of time, for sure. The broad point I'm trying to get across in this video is that we can look for band-aids, tips, clutter, convolution, all this stuff. We can look for complexity, and we can stay in the old paradigm of struggling, and we can ignore the fact that the best singers don't need any of that stuff. Or we can start asking ourselves, how do we get into that different reality? Is there a way to cross over from this world into the other world? And it really is that profound. You wonder why people can't see it, but when you've been on both sides of the fence more, you start to understand that it's almost like living in the Matrix. And what I mean by that is, struggling singers are in the Matrix, and naturals have escaped the Matrix, shall we say. They are outside of that reality that the other people are trapped in. In a sense, it's that profound, and that's why people resist moving to the other paradigm, because it involves looking deeply at ourselves, and many times being humbled when we realise, I'm still not very good at this. And most of my contemporaries, most of my favourite singers are 15, 20 years younger than I am, and they're much better singers than I am. How do we reconcile that? These are the types of questions that get brought up when we're moving to the new paradigm. They don't get brought up when we spend decades really delving into this massive, elaborate intellectual quest for technique, and we keep patting ourselves on the back saying, look how intellectual I am because I know all of this jargon about my voice. Whilst the natural singers, ignoring the fact that they don't need any of it, and ignoring the fact that they still sing better than me. How's that work? Because they've escaped the Matrix. They're living in a different reality. So I wanted to illuminate this more profound idea of crossing into a new paradigm as a singer. And if you're really serious about this and you feel like you're a harder case, this is the kind of more fundamental change that you're really going to be searching for if you want to really progress. And it's the kind of fundamental change that's very hard to develop and learn. In one sense, it's the quest to make singing easier, less complicated, more simple, and easy. And that's what makes it hard, because we don't want to believe that something that's so difficult for us could be very simple and like really no big deal. Like breathing, like walking, like talking. Could it really be that simple? For the naturals it is. They don't think of it as any different. Fearless, easy, no big deal. How do we get into that new paradigm? We have to build a bridge. Anyway guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Please subscribe, give this video a thumbs up. I'll catch you very soon. Take care. Bye bye.